My name is Maria Costantini, and I am the current chair and one of the founding members of the Westwood Environmental Action Committee. The scope of our meeting today is really to talk about this community electricity aggregation, which is a subject of a warrant article that will be voted on at town meeting. As you can see from this slide, and also from the title, this warrant article is about the supply of electricity, is about renewable energy, and although it's not shown here, it's also about the cost of electricity. Before I introduce our speaker, which will explain the program, I want to give you a brief background on WEAC, which is the Environmental Action Committee, and also the origin of this warrant article. So the Environmental Action Committee is an advisory committee to the Select Board and makes recommendations on sustainable environmental policies and actions. Over the years, we have sponsored solar fairs, energy fairs. We sponsored the Green Community Act and also worked with DPW on a number of recycling activities like the Westwood Recycling Day. Regarding the warrant article, we really got started only this past summer when some new members of WEAC proposed it to us, brought it to our attention, and many towns already have programs like this, so they were aware of it. We discussed it, and then we invited, actually, Eugenia to come to one of our meetings to tell us about it and to explain it to us. So what we learned is that the CEA is a state-sponsored program that allows towns to purchase electricity on behalf of the community and also negotiate lower prices and higher renewable content. We thought that this was a good opportunity for the town, and so we submitted a warrant article because it needed to be approved by town meeting. And we submitted the warrant article to the Select Board, and the Select Board decided to co-sponsor it with us. So this meeting today, and we'll have another one next week, is really to explain the program to you so that you can ahead of time know how it will work, and when you have to vote at town meeting, you can make an informed decision, and if you are in support of it, maybe you can speak in favor of it. So with all of this done, I would like to introduce our speaker. Eugenia Gibbons is the policy director at the Green Energy Consumer Alliance, a nonprofit consumer and environmental advocacy organization that helps individuals, businesses, and communities make clean energy choices. She's a graduate of Tufts Urban and Environmental Policy Planning Program and of the University of Connecticut. And she's coming all the way from Melrose.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as Maria noted, my name is Eugenia. I'm with a nonprofit organization called Green Energy Consumers Alliance, formerly Mass Energy. We are a nonprofit that's committed to harnessing the power of energy consumers to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon future. Basically, what that means is we work really hard to make green energy choices as easy and as seamless as possible for you, for communities, for businesses, and then we also help to help our members engage in advocacy at the state level, because we really are very active in state policy here and in Rhode Island to try to make it easier for communities to do things that are green. I'm going to go through a quick slideshow that will explain what aggregation is and community electricity aggregation. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer as the questions arise, or I've set aside time at the end too to have a more in-depth conversation. I already know my friend over here has asked a number of good questions, so I will do my best to answer them. All right, so the goals for today I hope that you all will walk away with a real clear understanding of what community electricity aggregation is. I want to make sure that folks are familiar with the benefits of aggregation, both from an environmental perspective, but also from a pocketbook perspective. Aggregation has the potential to save you money. So I want to make sure you understand that. I want to provide a quick snapshot of a number of other communities that have done aggregation, and specifically that have done green municipal aggregation or community electricity aggregation. We'll take a look, and I'll look to Maria and Claire to help me with this one, but we'll take a look at what was proposed in Westwood's warrant article. And then we'll review sort of next steps and the ways that you can engage going forward. So, for starters, what is community electricity aggregation? It goes by many names. You might hear it be called green municipal aggregation, clean electricity choice. There are many, many things. But basically what CEA is the bulk purchase of electricity supply undertaken by your community, your municipality, on your behalf. And it is done in an effort, it's done for a variety of reasons, but mainly it's done to stabilize electricity prices, to achieve savings for customers, and increasingly it's being done to help increase the renewable electricity content that's in the electricity supply. So right now, you all are Eversource customers. So your bill is broken down into two components. There's the distribution and there's the supply. The distribution is how it gets to you. The supply is what it's made up of. And in Massachusetts, we have a requirement called the Renewable Portfolio Standard, which requires Eversource or National Grid or competitive supplier to ensure that a certain percentage of their supply comes from renewable resources every year. That's called the RPS. And that percentage increases a slight amount each year, 1% per year. Eventually it'll start going up 2% per year. But the idea is that right now, your basic electricity supply that you get from Eversource has, it's 20, right now it's 2019, 14%, yeah, it's 2019, 14% of it is coming from things like wind, solar, anaerobic digestion, and those are projects that are in the New England area. What community electricity aggregation does is it allows you to say, you know what, Westwood, we're really committed to being greener than that, and we want to see what we can do to help drive the demand and make our supply have even more than 14% renewable, more than 14% wind or solar or anaerobic digestion. And that's what CEA does. It allows you as a community, each and every one of you, to say we're committed to more. And so we want our electricity supply to be at least 5% more than what that RPS requirement is. Aggregation as a whole, it doesn't always have to include a green component, but aggregation as a tool for communities has been around since 1997. When Massachusetts Restructuring Act went through, it enabled aggregation, so it enabled communities to go out to bid for electricity on behalf of their residents and small businesses as a way to compete against the basic service offering from your utility. So basically, again, that idea that it would be a competitive way to achieve price stability, so your rates aren't always going up and down, and to achieve savings. So this slide just speaks again to some of the benefits of CEA. As I said, there's savings for customers so that you save a little bit more each month. There's the price stability, so you have a long-term contract that you're signing on to, or that the community is signing, and so there's not this fluctuation in the rate every 6 months. The greener choice, as I mentioned, it allows the community to commit to even more renewable energy content than what is currently required by law, and to do so in a competitive way so that you're still getting that savings and that stability. And then because the Renewable Portfolio Standard, those class 1 basically means new. So if you hear me mention class 1, that just means new renewable projects that have been online or are coming online since 1998. because the Class 1 designation requires the projects to be in our region, you're helping to drive demand for local projects, for in-state and in-region renewable projects, which is great. You're not purchasing wind from Texas or out in the Dakotas or solar from the Carolinas. It's really about prioritizing renewables that are here in New England, in Massachusetts, and displacing fossil fuels, dirty emitting fossil fuels from our regional grid. I have a disclaimer at the bottom of the slide. It might be hard to see if you're in the back of the room, but I should mention that there's no guarantee of savings under CEA as compared to the Eversource basic service rate, because the Eversource electricity supply charge changes every 6 months for residential and small business customers and every 3 months for large business customers. That is a disclaimer that the DPU requires us to mention whenever we're talking about rates. But by and large, our experience has been that communities that enter into aggregation actually do achieve savings over time compared to relative to the basic service offering. So how does it work? Well, here's how aggregation works. Your community, your municipality goes out to procure a broker who helps to negotiate the contract for the supply. So the role of the broker is to find a way to provide the clean electricity supply at a competitive price on behalf of the community. When they have done that and a contract has been signed, any resident, so any of you who currently are on the basic service offering, which is basically your default supply, from Eversource, would automatically be enrolled in the aggregation. The difference, I should note that some customers might have what's called a competitive supplier. So are any of you with a company that is providing your supply that's not Eversource? Like a Veridian or? Okay. So those are called competitive suppliers. And you're not on the basic service offering for Eversource. So if for the rest of you, you get Eversource, Eversource provides your supply. When the aggregation goes through, you'll automatically be enrolled in the aggregation. This workshop today, the one happening next week, and probably a couple of others that will happen, are opportunities for you to understand the details of the aggregation. You do have an opportunity to opt out of the aggregation if you don't want to be part of it. You can do that. And there is no penalty associated with opting out. It just means you'll stay on Eversource's basic service and the rest of the community will be on the aggregation. If you have a contract with a competitive supplier, so those of you who raised your hand, you won't automatically be enrolled into the aggregation. But you can join the aggregation if you choose to. You'll have to leave your competitive supplier and you'll just want to look into what that would entail. But once you're off of your competitive supply obligation, you could join the community's aggregation. You will see no changes when you get your bill each month. You'll still get a bill from Eversource every month, because remember that part about distribution? They're still managing all of that. What will change on your bill is there will be a little line item for supply, and the name on the bill will be whoever the supplier is that the broker has contracted with. Yep?
I have two questions.
Sure.
Who's the broker in town who would be drawing up this deal? Is it somebody from the select board or from the town?
They have, the town would have to select, well, you don't always have to select a broker. You can choose to work with someone and hire a consultant, but the broker has not been selected yet. To the best of my knowledge, there has not been. The first step in the process is passing the warrant article to enable the town to move forward with aggregation.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Once we're on this aggregation plan, can we opt in to buy more?
Excellent question. Excellent question, yes. You absolutely can. So, and I'll get to the process a little bit at the end, but one of the things that many communities that have done aggregation allow for is what's called an opt-up. It's exactly what you're describing. So the basic offering, the default offering, might be 5% more renewables than basic service. Your default is going to be, like I said, right now in 2019, we're at 14% clean energy. So if Westwood were to move forward tomorrow, your default offering would be 19. But they might offer an opt-up option, so you could opt all the way up to 100%. We have some communities in the state who do, Arlington, for example, I believe offers like a 50% opt-up. If you want 50% of your electricity to come from renewable resources, you can. Many communities have a 100% option, so you can absolutely opt up to something even cleaner. But the really elegant and nice thing about the aggregation, just the basic offering, is that even if you don't want to opt up, I always encourage people to opt up because we want as much renewable electricity as possible. But even if you don't do that, you're already starting ahead of what the state requires. So you're already doing better than the state. Yep.
This does not affect the delivery costs?
Does this affect the delivery costs? That's an excellent question. No, not to my knowledge, it does not. I can certainly double check for you, but no. I'd have to,
The Eversource.
yeah,
Eversource is a deliverer.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it should know.
It's separate from that charge. It's just the supply. It's just the content that's being delivered.
Right.
The other pieces are part of the other half of your bill.
Can I just interject for a second?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
Your basic bill will be affected because you're hoping that the generation charge or the supplier charge will be less than what Eversource is offering now. Isn't that the point?
Would be less than, I'm sorry, I'm just turning the vibration off of my phone. Yes, that would be less than what Eversource's supply is now, yes.
So with respect to those who have an outside supplier now, so if I understand it correctly, CEA is like the umbrella organization, and then there'll be a broker, and then there'll be a supplier, correct? CEA is not the broker.
See, right, yes, it's a program, it's not an organization, it's just the program.
The program.
Yeah,
So then you'll have a broker who will then pick your supplier.
on behalf of the
Very
community,
well,
yeah.
in my case, I have Veridian. Could very well end up being Veridian. You don't know who it is at this point.
Right,
Okay.
Yeah.
So technically, the supplier in the end should be offering a lower generation charge than what Eversource
Yes.
otherwise would.
yes.
Plus, it will be renewable energy.
Right, the idea is to go out and get as competitive a price as possible with some additional renewable electricity content.
Okay.
So that's why I had that disclaimer on there, because it may be slightly more than what your basic service offering is, but it's still, that could be because you have even more renewable content mixed into there. So does that make sense?
Only not if it's more expensive than the Eversource supplier. It doesn't make sense.
Eversource doesn't have more renewable electricity content.
Okay, but we're still talking about the supplier of the generation charge, which will be affected
Where, yes.
on your bill.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So how long has this community aggregation program been in effect? How many years, or as far as comparing it to, you said that you've always had a lower rate but how long has this been proven to be true? Is it?
Sure. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. This is a little tricky to see. So currently there are over 150 communities in Massachusetts that are doing aggregation. The map that's at the bottom, it's a color-coded map. Those are all the communities that are doing aggregation. If they're dark green, they're communities that are doing what Westwood is considering, which is going all out on renewable Class 1 electricity. Or if they're different shades, it's hard to see in here, they may have varying degrees of renewable content, but the dark green is starting at 5% more. To answer your question, this model of aggregation, this CEA or GMA or whatever you want to call it, was first adopted in 2015 by Melrose. And so since that, or in that time, the communities that have done aggregation have come out pretty competitive to the Eversource rate. So since the program was first introduced, the model was first introduced in 2015.
So do you want to explain that? Or do you come back?
I was going to come back to it, but I can.
So can I make a
Yeah.
So about the broker,
the broker, there is the opportunity to use a broker that has already been selected through a competitive process. So this broker will work with town officials. We have an energy manager in Westwood, so he will be involved and work. He's the one who did the Green Community Act. That's saving a lot of money to the town. Is really a very experienced person. He can use the broker just as an aid so that we can develop the plan and we can issue the request for proposal. The broker is just a help to the town. The town makes the final decision. The contract is signed by the Board of Selectmen. If the contract with the price and all of that, if it's not affordable for the town, it's not competitive, the selectmen will not sign it and will wait and maybe go out with a request for proposal later on when the market is changing and it's more favorable. It's like the stock market in a way. We may have to wait. We'll have to see. But the Board of Selectmen makes the final decision, not the broker.
Right.
And Mike Gillette is here. He was also be our town manager. He will also be heavily involved in monitoring that everything is done appropriately and and everything will be transparent. We will have more meetings before we actually go out with the program.
That's an excellent point. So nothing is set in stone until the contract is signed, and this community has a lot of discretion in terms of whether or not it moves forward or when it moves forward based on the competitiveness of the bid. I want to mention a couple of other things that you mentioned, that you touched upon. One is that the Metropolitan Area Planning Council helped develop, the regional planning agency helped develop this model with my organization and with a company called Good Energy. And so when Maria says that efforts have been made to vet a broker, that was done by MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, who has gone through this process and looked at what is in the best interest of the many communities that they serve. And so MAPC is a tremendous resource for communities as they think about aggregation. The broker will be, whoever the broker is that you choose, will be a tremendous resource. My organization is happy to be a resource. So a community, and then as I mentioned, there are many, many communities that have done aggregation, and a number of them have done green aggregation or community electricity aggregation, and so you have other communities that you can lean on too. You're not reinventing the wheel here. You're sort of moving forward from where someone else has already started. There was one other point I wanted to make. Yep, go ahead.
Well, go ahead and make your point, but before you move from this screen, I'd like to...
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
All right, so if I get this right, on the basic plans, the price that gets paid per kilowatt hour is lower than the price you pay out of for Eversource's basic plan.
Right.
On the other hand, if you go to 100% green option, which can be staged, some communities go all the way, but if you stage it so you can pick different, it tends to rise and can rise, as in this indication, at 100%. It's actually higher than the rate you're paying for basic service out of Eversource. I think there are two important elements that we're talking about here. I think on the one hand, if you're just looking to save a little bit of money on your electric bill, you go on the lower basic. If you are committed to the green aspect and trying to drive the country to using green energy versus something that pollutes the environment, there's a willingness to pay a little bit more to get that benefit or to do that for society. So I think that the plan is structured in that way to drive green energy.
Yes.
But
that's an excellent point. So depending on the community, so that's an excellent point. That the conversation typically starts with a desire to deliver a little bit more renewable energy to a community while also delivering savings. But the more renewable electricity you layer into that, there is a potential for the cost to the price to rise for that supply as you get up to 100%. The difference between what we're talking about here Class 1, Massachusetts RPS Class 1 renewables, and what you may be getting from a competitive supplier, like a Viridian or others, is that these are in-region renewable resources. They're not out of state, they're not out of region, they're not out of market, which means they're having a bigger impact on driving renewable energy development in Massachusetts and in the New England area, on benefiting the environment regionally, on benefiting the economy locally and regionally. So there's that. I'm just going to make one other point. The other thing is the reason why, let me see if I can, sorry, I'm bouncing around my slides a little bit. The reason why a community might choose to undertake, or one of the benefits associated with aggregation at the municipal level versus an individual competitive supply, is that the community is doing all the heavy lifting for you. The municipality is doing all the heavy lifting. They are vetting the product. They are thinking about what's in the best interest of the community and the residents as a whole. What are the terms of the contract going to look like? How do we make sure that we're not burdening our community with additional things? How do we keep the costs competitive? What is the timing, and when does it make sense to move forward in a way that's strategic and competitive for a community? They're doing all of that for everybody who lives in Westwood. The difference between that and an individual competitive supply is that it's very difficult for an individual consumer to go through that process on their own, and to ensure that what they're getting at the end of the day is truly a green product or truly a competitive product. And so the beauty of the municipal aggregation is that the municipality is sort of taking that burden on its own in your interest and on your behalf. The Attorney General's office released a report last spring, and they're going to be releasing some follow-up numbers that demonstrate that for individuals, you and me individually, competitive supply doesn't always work in our favor, and that competitive suppliers often have targeted with misleading and deceptive marketing practices elderly residents, low-income residents, and income residents who speak English as a second language. So that's just a way to say that the benefit of, one of the many benefits of competitive supply is that you don't have to take that risk on. The community is doing it for you. Yes.
So supposing that Westwood decides to go ahead and passes the town warrant article, and supposing that half of the Westwood residents decide that they would like to be more aggressive and go for 25% green energy goal, and the rest of the town decides it wants to stay with the basic rate, how is that difference arbitrary?
How is the difference arbitrary? It's based on your usage. So
I'm saying if I as an individual resident want to have 25% of my supply green energy, okay, and my neighbor only wants to stick with the basic plan, does the town decide which percentage?
No, you get to decide. Individually. Yep. So the town's basic offering would be 5%. That's called the default. And that's what makes it green. It's at least 5% more than what you currently have. So that's what everybody would automatically get rolled into if you're on basic service. If you decide to opt up, then the town would have to decide what the opt-up options are. And whoever you work with could look at that. And as I noted, Arlington is one of the few places that offers 50% and 100% opt-up. But once you decide to opt up, it's individual, household by household. Yes, that's an excellent question. Thank you. Yep.
Might not be the right time, but what if you have solar and you have SRECs and you have, that's being based on the usage of your electric for your rebates, et cetera?
So it doesn't affect your solar if you have solar on your property. It's basically just if you have anything being delivered, if you have any electricity being delivered through Eversource right now through basic service, whatever your usage is, it would affect that amount. So if you, which presume
up to 100%, that wouldn't affect as far as the SREC or the.
Doesn't affect what you've agreed, what you've already negotiated with your SRECs. That's a separate, yeah. This slide, since it's up, I'll just show you. These are some of the local projects that I was referencing. Class 1 resources are local resources, so we maintain a portfolio of renewable projects in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and a little bit in Maine. These projects were all supported by our over 20,000 members, Green Energy Consumers Alliance. I like to point to the solar that just came online in Rhode Island. Those were solar projects that, because of aggregation in Massachusetts, because communities were really demonstrating that they wanted more renewable, we were able to go in and help to secure the renewable supply from those solar projects, which helped to get them built, on an accelerated timeline. They would have been in the process of trying to find people who wanted their supply if not for aggregation. So communities are having a real impact.
As more and more people are hopefully going for 100% or 50% renewables, are there enough suppliers in New England to keep up with the demand?
Wonderful question. So yes, there are. The question was, if more and more people want more renewable, do we have enough suppliers in the region to provide it? And the answer is yes. So the RPS that I mentioned before, that's a requirement on the utilities. They have to comply with that law. So there's the law is helping to drive a little bit of demand for renewables. But there are many more projects out there that could be built, that need to be built, but people need to demonstrate that they want them. And so that's what communities are doing. They're increasing that demand for renewable electricity beyond what the law requires, which is helping to drive new projects. And we're at a point right now where there's absolutely sufficient supply to meet growing demand. And that's one of the reasons why someone asked about Newton. Newton has a really impressive commitment through their aggregation for over 40% total. That's because, and they were able to find a supply to meet that demand. Their community said, we want even more renewables, and they went out and they found it and they secured the supply. Yep.
But I'm guessing that as demand goes up, even more resources will be built and more jobs will be created, and it will just be a spiral upwards.
Across the region. We like to think of this as, we call it keep away at Green Energy Consumers Alliance, where basically because the utilities are required to comply with the law, and your community is, well, let me back up a little bit. So when I say green energy, the green energy is the green component of the electricity coming out of a turbine or off of a solar panel is represented by what's called a REC, a renewable energy certificate, renewable energy credit. So utilities buy those RECs to show that, hey, we've bought green supply. A community that's doing aggregation is also buying RECs to say, hey, no, we're doing even more green supply. So we call it keep away because if we have a pool of RECs out there and the utilities are trying to get to them to comply with the law, but your community is saying, hey, we want even more than what you have to do, then the utility, it's driving demand, so new projects have to come online to put more RECs out there for both the utility and the communities to demonstrate that they're being green. So it is driving demand for new resources. Yep.
Before I forget from the other slide, I also get an Eversource bill for another community that is turbine. And one of my concerns, and I opted in 3 years ago, I think it was, but one of my concerns is I have no idea whether it's costing me more, costing me less, because Eversource does not show, this is more for WEAC, does not show on the bill what the difference is in the supply amount is. So that's,
yeah. Are you saying
my Eversource bill? I have my service. I have my distribution, but the service doesn't say anywhere on the bill that it's costing me 10.9 cents per kilowatt hour for Eversource. It's costing me 9.9% cents per hour for.
It's not breaking it down by resource.
And so I'm just bringing that up as something that maybe if the town goes forward with this, that this would be something that could be negotiated with Eversource so that you know how much you're saving or not saving.
Yeah, I don't think we can negotiate that because their bills will not change, except, but we could, as a committee or as a town, have a place where we post what the Eversource rate will be for that year. Because it's good to really monitor, you're right, to see that in fact it's accountability in a way for the program. The good thing is that the program, usually the contract will be only for a couple of years, so it's like buying a CD. We don't know what's going to happen to the market, so we make a commitment for 2 years and then we go out again. So the risk is relatively small, but definitely I think it's good to.
If that's maybe your committee could consider.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be
We would
helpful
like to
indeed.
monitor that.
And at that point, maybe, if it comes up at town meeting, it would be a good point to say, yes, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I have a question. In the case of Viridian, when you signed up for with their contract for 2 or 3 years, whatever, if in the end Eversource was lower over a period, they actually refunded you the difference. Is something like that could be considered? I think people would be more comfortable in being locked in for 2 or 3 years.
So I'm not familiar with the specifics of your contract with Viridian. That's possible that's the case. I don't know for certain how it affects all Viridian. What I will what I will say though is with the communities aggregation, you may opt out at any time. So to your point, if the information is available so that you're able to compare and contrast, you're able to opt out of the aggregation at any time without penalty. The thing about the aggregation is, and Maria alluded to this, the term of the aggregation is typically between 1 to 3 years, and the savings are often achieved, or the bulk of savings are achieved over time. So you wouldn't necessarily want to be hopping in and out of the aggregation because then you're not actually benefiting from the aggregation. But in the event that you wanted to, you could.
Yeah, and you have a slide also that shows, right?
Yes.
This one.
Yeah. I'm sorry if it's difficult to see this with the lights on. The slide here is looking at Dedham's aggregation versus the Eversource basic service rate. So at Dedham did a 5% aggregation. They started at 5%. And in the orange, you can see that's Eversource's basic service rate. So you see there's some fluctuation in the rate over time, beginning in the winter of 2016, running through the winter of 2019. And then the green line is the rate that the aggregation was able to negotiate and secure for the same period of time. So while it did go up a little bit in the winter of 18, it was still less than what the Eversource basic service rate was. And over the period of the aggregation, you can see that it was competitive. It was less expensive than the Eversource rate overall over that time. But information like this would be made available during the course of the aggregation. There would likely be a website developed that would have information out there, and so you would be able to make informed decisions as a consumer. So this is sort of illustrating the same point. This is looking at Eversource's historical residential rates from summer 2014 to 2019. And you can see again there's a real fluctuation in the rates. There are a number of things that contribute to this. But this is, you can see sort of how it goes up and down. I'll probably remember the winter of 2015. It goes up and down, and the idea is that the aggregation would help secure stability, price stability and savings, and so you wouldn't be subjected to this up and down.
Which the aggregation is the gray?
The aggregation's not represented here. This is just looking at the rates. Here's the aggregation is the green here, specifically for Dedham. So this is the process, and I'm going to have Maria help me with this if you have questions specific to where to WEAC's role in this process or to where things are in Westwood. But an aggregation takes, it doesn't happen overnight. I know I made the comment earlier if you wanted to do it tomorrow like this, but actually it's a process that's undertaken. So it's about a year from the point of time when a community decides it wants to do an aggregation, typically until the aggregation goes into effect. During the course of that time, as I noted, there's a town meeting, a warrant article voted on and approved at the town meeting, which enables the community to move forward with aggregation on the community's behalf. You're basically authorizing the Board of Selectmen to ultimately sign a contract on your behalf. There's nothing in that language that requires them to sign a contract if the contract comes back and it's not as competitive, or if there's something in it that maybe you want to wait and see what the market does, what the rec market does. As Maria mentioned, there was a broker selected by MAPC who provides guidance and helps navigate the process of selecting a supplier, of figuring out what's competitive, of navigating approval by the Department of Public Utilities. So that's another thing that's worth noting. In addition to the community vetting this product on your behalf, there's oversight that happens at the state level. The Department of Public Utilities ultimately has to approve a plan that is delivered to them. So that's done as part of the in the interest of the consumer and in the interest of the ratepayer. And then once it gets to the DPU, if the DPU approves it, then the plan goes into effect. Then there's a duration of time when you all would have the ability to opt out if you do not want to be part of the aggregation. And then once the aggregation takes effect, if you've not opted out, you're automatically rolled into it. It's pretty seamless. You won't notice anything different on your bill except for who the supplier is. And if during that time you decide to opt up, there's also a window of time when you can opt up. You can opt up at any time during the course of the aggregation, but sort of at that time before things fully take effect, you have the ability to consider your options. Yes?
How long does the aggregation period last, and will we be voting on this again in the years to come?
So the question was, how long does the aggregation typically last, and would you be voting on it again in years to come? So aggregations can last anywhere from a year. I've seen contracts anywhere from a year to 3 years, and then communities go through the process of renewing. You do not necessarily, my understanding is you don't have to go back to the town meeting to reauthorize this Board of Selectmen to do it, but they still have the board still has the same discretion of like holding the plan and waiting to see how things shake out for the community and what's in the best interest. So I live in Melrose. We were one of the first communities to move forward on aggregation. The first aggregation I think was a year, and then we went out and did a subsequent aggregation for a 6-month window. And then when we went to go renew again, we found that for a number of reasons it wasn't a competitive time to be able, the community, I was not involved in the aggregation, the community couldn't deliver an aggregation that was competitive to the basic service offered by our utility, so we waited, the community waited. And we're now at the process where we're about to renew aggregation again. So the community definitely has the ability to sort of read things and take the temperature of the municipal decision makers have the ability to take the temperature of the community as a whole and read the market with some guidance and move forward strategically. Yep.
Hi, it's kind of a two-part question, if you don't mind. Westwood has put a warrant up to pass this. Has there been any other town in Massachusetts that has got a similar warrant and has failed to pass? And if so, why?
It's an excellent question. I do not know of any communities that have failed to pass their warrant article, but I know of many who have similar articles that have passed. So I'm not sure if anyone on WEAC knows of any that have failed.
All right, thank you.
I think in part because, again, it's just enabling the community to move. It's not requiring the community to do anything. Mm-hmm.
Do we have the wording of the article, Maria?
Yeah, we don't have the entire wording of the article, but the important part
Is this it? And
The FinCom booklet that went out, I think has.
no, it did not.
Oh, it didn't? Oh.
No, it
I
don't,
might
no. Well, we had the language, it was modified just a little bit, and I didn't have the final language, but the important thing is that I had, the exact, so the vote will authorize the select board to develop a program and enter into a contract or contracts to aggregate the electricity load of the residents and businesses in the town of Westwood independently or with other municipalities. This means that we could also go in as with other communities that are on the same timeline as us. Some communities in Western Mass that have a very small population have aggregated together as to have more purchase power. So you are approving the development of the plan and the program, and you are also automatically approving the signing of the authorizing the selectmen to sign a contract. Now, Mike Gillette is here, obviously, representing the selectmen. We know that our select board is very conservative and very kind of aware, of the economical issues, and they would never, I think, approve a plan that costs the residents more than what they are already paying. I think you can be pretty assured about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually spoke with Mike Walsh after the FinCom hearing last week, and he said pretty much those words exactly. He said we'd never get reelected if we if we signed a bad deal. So I think we can rest assured that they're watching out for our best interests. And a couple of other points too. You had mentioned that yes, EverSource does post its current power what is it called, basic service rates on their website. So that is public information. And the broker would be charged also, in addition to the other things, with coordinating the opt-ins, opt-outs, doing a publicity about it, providing all the information that is relevant to help our residents make an informed decision for their own selves. So.
Yes.
How is the broker paid?
It depends on who you choose. It's a modest fee off of the, I don't know the exact number, but off of the negotiated contract.
Rate.
Yes, rate.
So the broker is not paid up front. So if we don't sign the contract, we don't pay the broker. The cost of the brokerage is included in the negotiated price of the electricity we negotiate with the supplier. And it's about I don't have my glass, 0.001 per kilowatt hour. So you don't see the cost of the broker in the total price, but that's included, and it will determine the final rate that we will offer to the residents. Yeah.
So I just want to make something clear. The envisioned, what the Board of Selectmen is envisioning, and what I understood that we were envisioning, is that we would have options, not just one of the basic rate, not one of 100% rate, but there'd be options in between those two rates, 100% green energy and just 5% above what EverSource is required to produce. There's language in the article that basically says that at least one of the options has to be better price than what EverSource is giving in order to sign, for the Board of Selectmen to sign. But not everyone, as I indicated already, that when you go higher in a percentage, you're basically buying into the concept you're trying to support green energy, not necessarily do savings. The other thing I will point out is, if you look very carefully at the numbers and what we're going to be saving, what we're talking about is a few cents on a kilowatt hour. It's not, the variation isn't that much. So, and if you think about your bill, at least my bill, before we put in this new energy thing, was around $100. So if you're talking about a percentage, you're talking about a couple of bucks. We're not talking about huge savings here. We're talking about some savings on the lower end, a little bit more money on the higher end. But in either event, it's not a lot of money in either side of savings or extra cost. Really, one of the real serious benefits here, as has already been established, is we're getting into green energy. We're committing ourselves to improving the life of future people that come after us. That's huge. And we're doing it on a local basis where we're generating jobs and a demand for jobs to be created on the local level to provide green energy. So, and from green energy, the pollution goes down in our area, not in California where we don't get affected. So, you know, embedded in this is a lot of little things that add up to being a good benefit for everyone in society, but there's no huge benefit for anybody.
We'll not probably even notice the difference. But cost-wise.
We'll all notice the difference environmentally. Yes.
We at WEAC wanted to kind of quantify a little bit what the benefit would be if we saved 5% of our total consumption for 2018, which is 58 million kilowatt per hour. If we save 5% of that, what would it be equal to? And we did some, approximate calculations. There's an APA calculator that allows you to do that, so you can do it on your own. But it would be equal to about more than 200 cars driven for a year. It's like taking 200 cars from the road, or the electricity of 196 homes for a year, or this more type number of barrels consumed, and also I don't remember, but there was a large number, 2,000 acres of tree that have sequestered the carbon dioxide. So it has an impact, a quantifiable impact on our CO2 production.
I will just say that so Ann Berwick, who's the former commissioner at the Department of Public Utilities, she's now the sustainability director in the city of Newton. She, when testifying, Boston has also been moving forward with aggregation. And when she was testifying before their city council, she said, Boston, arguably the single biggest thing any community can do to reduce its carbon footprint today is aggregation. And it's really easy to do. So many communities have already done it. The model exists. It's just a matter of finding the right packaging for your community. But her words were, the single biggest thing that a community could do to reduce its carbon footprint is to enter into an aggregation. It was already mentioned, I know from the conversations I've had with folks in Westwood how committed Westwood is to being a green community, to reducing its carbon footprint, and to contributing to Massachusetts' leadership as a clean energy and climate leader. So this really kind of fits in nicely with all of the work that the community has already done to drive efficiency at the municipal level, to benefit from solar installations across the community, to really just living up to its green community status. So I will hand it to Claire.
Last comment?
I would like.
There's a question. You going to talk about that?
No, not yet. Not yet. No,
Go this ahead. Question may fall into the broad category of questions that we'll know the answer to if it passes. But have we spoken with getting together with Dedham or anything in terms of working with them and their group?
I do not know yet. Because the warrant article has not yet been voted on, I don't think that anybody has started to have conversations about other communities it could partner with. But once the article passes and the community has been authorized to move forward, anything is possible. Dedham is currently in an aggregation. I believe it expires late 2019 or early 2020. I think they're 2020. but anything is possible.
Yeah, definitely. The broker actually works already with a lot of communities, so he would know what is possible.
I just want to read off a list, the last thing just to keep this with you, is read off a list of communities that are currently doing green aggregation. So Dedham, Brookline, Somerville, Winchester, Arlington, Sudbury, Gloucester, Hamilton, and Stoneham have all done at least the 5% more with, those are communities that, full disclosure, my organization, we're a nonprofit advocacy organization, but because we maintain that portfolio of renewable projects, some communities come to us when they want to opt up to 100%, and we provide the green electricity supply. So the communities I just listed are communities that have come to us through their broker to say, hey, can you provide their X? Other communities that are in the process of considering aggregation, they're in different places in that timeline. Andover, Sharon, Bedford, Medford, Melrose, as I mentioned, Millis, Rockland, Waltham, I'll be there this afternoon, Cambridge, Lexington, Newton, Worcester, Sharon, Lincoln, Salem, and then in other parts of the state, Pittsfield was mentioned, or Western Mass was mentioned, Boston, Leverett, and Ashland. So those are all communities that have, that's a big chunk of the state that's actually thinking about the green part of their aggregation. It all adds up.
And I want to put in a plug for Green Energy Consumer Alliance too. If any of you, is anyone here before I start blathering, interested in getting up to 100% local renewable energy now? Okay, well,
you could do so with us.
We do that too. We have the solar panels, but we buy the rest of our electricity, and we have the thing called New England Wind that is managed by Green Energy Alliance, Consumer Alliance, and it's what, a couple of cents a kilowatt hour more, but it since they're a nonprofit, it's
tax deductible if you itemize your taxes.
Yeah, so you might want to talk to that.
Sure. You just pay a modest premium on top of your electricity. It's usually, depending, average usage, it's like an extra $15 to $20 a month, and it goes to supporting all of these projects. No, I mean, if you have solar panels, so you probably use less electricity. But so we have over 20,000 members and a number of communities that have done aggregation. And as I mentioned, all of these projects that you see, we're able to come online because of our members.
So we've been going for about an hour, so I think everybody is ready. But any last minute question? We'll have another meeting next week at the library. So I would like to thank Eugenia Gibbons for coming and taking the time. Thank you very much. And now we can change totally the subject. So by the Environmental Committee, something that we are doing in May.
All right, yeah, I probably should get grab my props and the microphone.
Here you go.
So 5 more minutes. So Westwood Environmental Action Committee does a lot of different things. We looked into a plastic bag ban and decided we were going to do an education campaign instead, because we would like to encourage everybody to get off the single-use stuff, because the single-use stuff is also a very big contributor to our environmental footprint. So we will be encouraging people to bring your own bag in May. It's been declared by the Board of Selectmen, May is Bring Your Own Bag Month. But we don't want it to just be the month. We just want to highlight it. We hope that everybody will get in the habit of always bringing their own bag. It's easy. You just, thank you. Kate is also on our committee, and yeah, it's just getting in the flow of putting those bags back in your car, remembering to bring them in the store. And we also will be giving out these little pouches that can go right in your purse or your pocket. So if you don't remember it, you can just grab it, and this is what they will look like. So it's a tiny little box, tiny little pouch, but it turns into a bag. And it's made out of recycled polyethylene. It can be washed, which is something Roach Brothers would appreciate. They say, oh, people got to wash these things. So this is, it holds a lot of stuff. It's strong, it's light, and it's convenient. So watch for that. In May, we'll be encouraging people to bring their own bags.
We have like recyclable plastic bags now that only last like 3 months and they're gone.
Well,
Disposal. They sell them at they use them at road
I know. Yeah. So they have their good points and their bad points, but yeah, reuse is always trumps recycling. So.
Thank you again.